Hello everyone. Today I'm going to start with a new topic, that is social planning, and there would be a series of lectures associated with the planning part, social planning part, where I would be discussing about the concept of social planning, the scope of social planning. I would be also talking about how planning would be considered or is an instrument in making social policy, as well as the principles and the sources of planning. This would be the all in this section when we are going to discuss about planning, and then later on there we'll also talk about the local level planning or the regional level planning, and the 5-year plans in consequence in relation to this topic of social planning in India. If we talk about the introduction, I'll begin with the introduction part, that is what is planning, and how planning is an instrumental part in the policy making system, why planning is considered to be important, and what would be the relevance and significance of planning. As we all know that planning is an organized, conscious and continual attempt to select the best available alternative courses of action in order to achieve specific goals or in order to identify the broader objectives. It is the art of getting future things done. So there's, when we do planning, it is about the broadcast, it is about forecasting that how things has to be done, in what manner things has to be initiated, what would be the implemental tools, what would be the mode of action or mode of implementation, and planning in what regard we have to make planning, whether it is the initiation or implementation of, or in policy formulation of policy implementation, and what would be the benefits, and we understand, we weigh the we also weigh the pros and cons of suggested policies or a program. So it is a rational application of human knowledge to the process of reaching decisions which are to be served as a base of human actions. So planning, it is also a complex process of decision making, which begins with the formulation of broad policy framework, broader goals and objectives, and then extends through a series of stages. Like the policy, there's also various stages, various steps in planning, that from which it begins from the identification of objectives and goals, where the goals are translated into detailed program for specific, detailed plans of action for specific programs or projects which are to be undertaken or which has to be actually implemented. So starting with from the very beginning, that is identifying the various stages, till identifying the broader objectives and formulating an objective course of action, till the last stage, that is evaluation, implementation and evaluation. So it is more of a systematic process of decision making, which involves setting up of objectives, determining the best course of action, that how it has to be, and what would be the course of action, what are the allocated resources which has to be utilized to achieve the desired outcomes, desired result, as well as, so it is kind of a which involves forecasting, strategizing and monitoring progress. So over the years, the government has implemented various social planning initiatives, like poverty alleviation programs or education and healthcare facilities, infrastructure development, measures to promote gender equality and social inclusion. However, despite these efforts, social planning in India still faces a lot of challenges and lot of constraints when in order to implement, or in order to bring out the desired result of a plan of action. So social planning is important, and it is based on regional, local, national level planning, and it also talks about that how planning, in what manner the planning has to be done. Like if we talk about the 5-year plans, if we take the example of 5-year plans, 5-year plans were initiated with the core objective of making India self-sufficient, self-reliant, accelerating economic growth and development, strengthening rural, agricultural or agrarian societies, setting up of establishments of industries, and then talking about the education, enlarging educational opportunities, making education compulsory. So these plans were initiated, and these were 5-year plans with a subsequent break of annual plans. So this planning was done in order to achieve certain desirable important goals which would be benefited, which aim to benefit the larger population in the various sectors, be it health, be it housing, be it education, be it infrastructure, be it poverty alleviation, and so on and so forth. So there are usually three types of planning if you talk about the planning part: strategic planning, tactical planning, and operational planning. So if you talk about the strategic planning, it is very crucial to the public policy management, and because it enables the policy makers to develop a clear roadmap to achieve the desired outcomes. And strategic planning particularly involves a very systematic approach, or a systematic way of defining the goals and objectives of the policies or the programs which has to be initiated. It identifies key challenges which and opportunities, and thereby develop a plan of action to achieve these goals. So some specific ways of achieving this planning supports the public policy management, like aligning the policy goals with the available resources, prioritizing the course of action, what type of action has to be taken, in what manner the action is to be taken, then developing a timeline for the implementation, then anticipating potential threats or anticipating potential obstacles which might occur in the due course of strategic planning, then engaging stakeholders and the public, and lastly monitoring and evaluating the policy outcomes. That would be the part of your the strategic planning. Then we talk about the tactical planning. Tactical planning is also defined as a process of taking an overarching strategic plan and creating creating actionable short and medium term timelines to achieve the goals. So tactical planning usually help define goals at multiple levels, and then it can help break down those long term strategic objectives into the proper benchmarks that can be reached in smaller and more focused projects. So it's like a breaking down of the larger broad terms objectives and take small and tactical steps in order to fulfill these. So alignment is extremely important for creating effective goals, and tactical planning actually is key to is a key step to achieving alignment through a strategic vision. And it usually involves this type of planning usually involves a couple of key steps, like including creating a timeline, assigning specific specific tasks, and then creating goals, which is also very essential of this planning process. Of then teams which would be traditionally seek to create certain help bring about better desirable achievable goals, and which would be important for the successful implementation. So it allows organization to helps increase efficiency. When you do planning, it helps in increasing efficiency and productivity by teams, for creating a clear attainable goals for any of size of the project or policy. And then we have the operational planning. This is a documented plan that outlines the goals and key objectives of any programs of any organizations. It is more of a short term day to day task and procedures based, and how they can be achieved. So operational planning, it is in, as a term itself suggests, the operation part of any organization, that how the organization is going to move ahead, what are the strategic goals, what are the key objectives of the organization, how can they be achieved. So it ensures that the members or the people who are associated with this type of planning, they understand their responsibilities as well as what they need to do. So there is a sense of accountability and responsibility in terms of this type of operational planning. It focuses on their procedural work on day-to-day basis, on daily basis, that what steps has to be taken. The operational plan actually helps and guides the team or the individuals that they may require to project the timeline and to make crucial decisions about the organization's long-term goals or the project or the policy's long-term goals. Then there is a strong correlation between planning and social policy. If you talk about the planning and integration between planning and policy, planning ensures that the policies are symmetrically developed, systematically developed, they are systematically organized as well as implemented. So through planning, whenever the policies are being made, or whenever the policies broader objectives are made, it through the process of planning, it helps to give a shape to the policy, that how this shape how policies, in what area the policies are to be developed, for whom the policies are to be developed, who would be the target population, in what manner these policies are going to affect. So it's a more systematically and in an organized way of developing as well as implementing a policy. When you plan out, when you bring about a course of action which has to be implemented to enjoy the benefits of a certain program. So it also helps in aligning the policy goals with available resources and societal needs. So second important objective of planning is that whatever the resources are available, whether it is internal resources or the external resources in the community, that has to be go along, or that has to be in sync with the policy's broader goals and objectives. So there are three elements related to it. First of all, the availability of external as well as internal resources. Secondly, what are the most demanding prioritizing needs and demands of the for which the policy has been initiated. And thirdly, what are the broader objectives and goals of the policy. So these three all need proper alignment: the resources, the needs which are being prioritized, and the broader goal and objective. So through planning, you actually create a roadmap, and it gives a direction, or it gives a sense of it gives you a proper channel, it gives you a proper direction, that in what manner the policy has to be implemented, initiated, implemented, formulated, and then evaluated. So through planning, you're able to identify the various policy steps also, starting from the very beginning, that is identification of the objectives, till the implementation and evaluation part. Then there is a mutual influence, and when you talk about policy, you cannot simply ignore the fact that the development, planning, all these sometimes are interrelated terms. Even the policy, social policies, they shape the planning process by specifying certain objectives and prioritizing these objectives. So they mutually influence each other. The policies and planning, they have a mutual correlation, in the sense that through the objectives, it actually determines, when you talk about the steps in policy making, it actually also gives an indication, or it gives a sense of direction, that how planning has to be initiated. So both are mutually reinforcing on each other. That is, policy gives shapes to the planning process, whether the planning is at the local level or at the state level or at the national level. How the policies at a different steps, starting from the very beginning, that specifying the objectives or goals, and how you're going to prioritize those needs, those objectives. Then planning methods actually influence the formulation of policies by providing a structured approach to problem solving. When we say the planning methods influence formulation, so when the policies are being formulated, through planning, you get to know that who would be the target population, for whom the planning, in what manner the planning has to be executed, what are the channels of, what are the sources, and what is the broader part of how it is going to influence the policies, which provide a more systematic, organized approach in dealing with the various issues and problems. Then it is crucial, definitely planning is crucial for social planning. Why? Because it optimizes the use of resources, reducing waste, as well as ensuring that funds which are available for the policies are being effectively utilized and appropriately managed. So it, first of all, it talks about the efficiency. It is important because it helps in reduction of wastage. If planning helps in utilizing optimal time as well as resources, whatever it is, and it also looks into the fact that the funds which are available and which have been allocated for a particular plan or a program or a project, it has been effectively, appropriately managed and utilized for the effective functioning. And it also ensures social policies which are targeted and which addresses the actual needs of the population. So it is more effective, it is more viable, and it is more concrete in the sense that it ensures that policies which are being formulated, which are being targeted, and which have been created to address the various actual needs of the population or of the target person, of the target population. Then accountability through planning, it is also gives a sense of accountability. It provides a clear framework for monitoring progress, in evaluating outcomes, enhancing transparency and responsibility. So through, when we talk about the planning, there is an hierarchy also. There's an hierarchical pattern associated, that at what level, what would be the first step in planning, how starting from the very beginning of policy of planning part till the last execution and implementation and overall evaluation, monitoring and evaluation. So it gives a framework. Clarity is there. There is no ambiguity. Then what steps has to be followed? Each steps has been clearly defined. What will be come after the next step? So there is an hierarchical pattern. So that the progress of the policy or the program can be monitored effectively. You can also evaluate what is the desired outcome, what was expected, and what we have achieved. So there is also about the outcome, and need to know, understand that what had been the expected outcome and what we have achieved. So it also enhances a sense of transparency and responsibility in understanding the overall effectiveness and efficiency of a policy. There are certain key important functions of planning which are associated in social policy, that is assessment. First, we need to do an assessment that is identifying the societal needs, what are the gaps in services and priorities through data collection and analysis. So first you have to do a full-fledged thorough assessment of the situations. What are the prioritizing societal needs and demands and expectations? What are the gaps? Where are the loopholes and lacunas if the service delivery, in terms of the service delivery mechanism? How the priorities are being carved, how the priorities are being made. And then we talk about the data collection as well as the analysis of the data. Secondly, planning is done, the function of planning in policy is designing, that you develop the policy framework, that in which manner, whether which model, which approach, through which approach model the policies would be initiated, whether it is a redistributive model, whether it would be through achievement performance model, or through the institutionalized institutional model, or what would be the certain approaches through which the policy would be implemented. So it gives a framework, it gives a design which talks about the objectives, the strategies, and the implementation plan. So what are the broader goals? How I'm to strategize things? What would be the course of action when you talk about the actual implementation of the plans, as well as monitoring and evaluation? Then implementation, of course, executing the policy through structured programs and initiatives, ensuring there is a coordination among the stakeholders. So next part of the planning key function would be implementation, where you need to have a link between has to be some kind of synchronization between the programs and the initiatives which has to be taken, so that there is a coordination among the stakeholders. The programs and the policies are being smoothly administered, implemented. And then evaluation, it demands, or it talks about the measures, the impact of policies, using indicators to assess effectiveness and make necessary adjustments or changes in the policy, because they are not that rigid. Then if you talk about the concept of planning, if you look into the concept of planning, social planning in India refers to the process of designing and implementing policies and programs that would promote social and economic development, addresses the needs of the most vulnerable sections of the society. India is a country with rich cultural and social heritage. So almost, but we all faces, every population face severe challenges, issues like in terms of poverty, inequality, income distribution, discrimination, lack of accessibility, so social planning aims to address all these challenges and with attempts to ensure a more inclusive and sustainable society and sustainable development also. So it is a process of investigating and responding to the needs and aspirations of the people whose lives or who live or work in a community or a society. Planning, there are few furthermore, clear statements which gives a clear picture regarding social planning, that what it is like a organized process for investigating and responding to the needs and aspirations of the people of the community. And in practice, this is based on certain values, judgments, techniques, skills which contribute to their for the better communities, to enhance or to bring up better communities and enhance the quality of life. And it also plays, a social planning also plays a very significant role in creating livable communities, more vibrant economies, sustainable places, diverse cultural expressions, and social cohesion. It tries to bring about cohesion, it gives expressions to their diversity, it creates more vibrant and viable economy, strengthening the economy when you talk about the planning part of it. And of course, more livable communities, communities which are more, participatory in approach, they are more coordinated, and there is, there's a collaboration among, or there is camaraderie, or there is a concerted efforts among the members of the community to make the community modern, to make the community more adaptable and adjustable. These are important part of the social planning process, and how planning becomes social planning becomes an integral part of policy making, or in any sector of planning. So social planning is also based on certain principles of social justice, like equity, access, participation, which will we be discussing further in as we proceed towards lecture. We will talk about the principles also, which aims to enhance community well-being and effectiveness. So in a way, it can be said that social planning, it embraces a planned approach in enhancing the quality of life of the community by identifying the needs, facilitating the timely, coordinated, and accessible provision of human services and community facilities, and involving the community in the planning and development of actions. So, no, when you talk about the social planning, it is about planning to improve the well-being and quality of life of people or of the local communities. People focused while people focused while physical environmental planning is place focused, but clearly there is a continuous interaction between. So social planning is a vital input. Environmental planning, particularly in examining the social impacts of changes it brings about in the society. So it helps to give the development, or rather guide the developmental aspect of policies, the development of policies and programs. So through social planning, actually it gives a direction, it guides the development of policies and programs to address complex issues and problems. And one key concept in planning, in social planning, is to one important concept of social planning is to ensure the resources are being the resources, the outcomes, and the opportunities, they are being fairly distributed, and they are equitably utilized across society. So there is equality, equity, and fairness in terms of opportunities, in terms of activities, in terms of resources. So particularly, if it can be said that social planning, it involves involves conducting need assessment, It involves conducting need assessments to identify the social needs and the problems of the individuals as well as of the communities. And participatory approach is being initiated, and participatory in planning has to be initiated in order to engage community members and the stakeholders in the process. So another important part of planning is the evidence-based practice, which involves the usage of research methods and the data to guide the decision making process in the social planning part. So sustainability is also one important crucial consideration in social planning. We often have to think about sustainability in the planning process, as it requires thinking about the long term impacts of initiative and ensuring that they are resilient and adaptable to the changing conditions. And it is also about, another critical aspect of planning, is that it involves the understanding of the interconnectedness of social issues, and considering the complex relationship between different factors or different sectors. So by understanding the key concepts and applying them in the theoretical part, and applying them in social planning efforts, the planners can actually develop more effective and sustainable solutions to the societal issues or any such issues and programs. And it is essential often to consider the uniqueness of or the unique needs of the individuals, and unique needs of the individuals and communities, while embracing the concepts while embracing these concepts of planning in order to create a more equitable and juster societies for all. Then if you look into the scope of planning, when we often say that social planning, it refers to the process of identifying, analyzing and addressing social issues as well as problems in order to promote positive or other in order to promote positive social change. And it involves the development and implementation of policies and aims programs that which is aimed to improve the well-being of the people, the life of the individuals and communities, particularly those who are marginalized or disadvantaged. So the scope of social planning is vast, and it includes a wide range of social issues, groups and institutions. By understanding the scope of social planning, we can better appreciate the importance of this process in promoting well-being, social well-being and justice. Now, if we look into the planning, it is wide range and involves addressing a variety of issues such as poverty, such as homelessness, inequality, discrimination, so aging, mental health, substance abuse, crime, education. So social planners, they work to identify these underlying causes of the issues and thus develop policies and programs to address them. So first and foremost becomes, very evident that while identifying these issues, they are able to identify the underlying causative factors behind these issues, like whether it's gender inequality, homelessness or drug addiction, discrimination, aging population, mental health, so on and so forth. Once they get to know the causative factors, they try to develop the policies and programs, because social planning aims to improve the lives of the individuals and the communities, those who are marginalized. Then the scope of is also concerned with improving the well-being of individuals, particularly those who are disadvantaged, and they seek to provide some kind of support system to the various groups such as the low income families, people with disabilities and so on. If the scope of social planning, if I say, is quite vast and widespread in Indian context, because it encompasses economic, social and environmental dimensions to achieve sustainable development and equitable growth. So since independence, India has adopted planning as a tool for national development, initially through a series of 5-year plans, and now it has been through the broader frameworks such as Niti Aayog's strategic vision. So if we can say that if you look into the scope of planning part of it, it involves working with a range of institutions, including government agencies, non-profit organizations, organizations, community groups and private institutions, business, social planners, they collaborate with various institutions to develop and implement policies and programs that would address these issues. And while developing effective policies and programs, which is a key aspect, they work with various multiple stakeholders to identify the best practices and tailor policies and programs to meet the specific needs of the community. So and then with this, it follows the implementation and evaluation of policies and programs, which are again an essential component of planning. And the planners, while working with the community partners, it ensures that they ensures they ensure that the policies and programs are reaching the intended audience and they're being implemented effectively. So they also collect data and evaluate the impact of policies and programs, which to identify the areas for improvement. And then the scope, so in particularly it can be said that the scope of planning is broad and complex at as the workers or the social planners, they try to try to identify the societal issues, develop policies, programs, implement these policies and programs to evaluate the effectiveness and efficiencies. The ultimate aim of that, is to promote social justice, improve the well-being of the individuals and communities, and care and create a more viable and equitable and just society. So if you look into the various part or various further, if we get into the details of the planning, scope of planning, first is the economic planning. Of course, when you talk about economic planning, it is about the balanced economic growth, which aims to create a more viable, balanced economy, strengthening the economy, enhancing the GDP of the country, looking at the various sectors, be it the primary sector, tertiary sector or secondary sector. Then resource mobilization and allocation is another important part of it, like in efficient use of resources which are available, be it both internal as well as external resources, to maximize national output, reduce deficits, as well as to improve the infrastructure. And it also focuses, when you talk about the economic employment, it also focuses on employment generation, creating job opportunities for the people, especially both in the slum as well as the rural areas, through various programs and schemes and welfare measures which has to be taken up. Then we talk about the social development plan. When we talk about the economic, it also looks into the poverty alleviation programs, designing schemes and programs to reduce poverty, and various other programs which has to be initiated to strengthen the rural as well as the urban communities. And in order to achieve their goals and objectives. Then we have the social development part of it. Now we look into the social development, planning is also done in the area of social development, particularly if I talk about education and literacy. So expanding access to primary education, secondary education, higher education, through various initiatives in the education sector like Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan or Right to Education Act. Then there is strengthening the healthcare system of the community with various programs like Ayushman Bharat and midday meal schemes. Then social security and welfare is also provided and would come under the social development sector, where it ensures safety nets for the vulnerable population, including women, children, and senior citizen. What are the social insurance and social security measures taken in the organized sector in the form of legislations and laws protecting the rights and entitlements of the labor class, or the laborers, or of the workers, providing welfare measures for the vulnerable populations such as women, children, disabled, minorities, youths, and so on. Then trying to reduce inequalities, addressing disparities in income, gender, caste, religion, through target policies and affirmative actions. Then there is also a rural development initiative which has to be taken up. And when you talk about this rural development initiative, agriculture and allied sectors needs to be strengthened, enhancing agricultural activities, productivity, then building up of rural infrastructure, and also creating self-employment and sustainable livelihood opportunities. So promoting self-sufficiencies and initiatives like National Rural Livelihood Mission, and so on. Then there is urban development. Urban infrastructure development is equally important when we talk about the scope of planning. when we say that the urban development infrastructure, developing smart cities, affordable housing, and urban transportation system has to be strengthened. Then pollution control and waste management is also in part of it. Livelihood opportunities and employment, creating employment in the urban areas. Then there is industrial growth and manufacture modernization. Planning is also done in the area of industrial growth and modernization, like encouraging manufacturing, focusing on initiatives like Make in India to boost the industrial output and the global competitiveness. Then small and medium enterprises should be encouraged, it should be facilitated, strengthening the small scale cottage industries and small scale industries also for any kind of local or regional development. Then when you talk about the in technology and infrastructure, when you talk about technology and innovation also, promoting research and development in digital economy through programs like Digital India. Then there is infrastructure development. When you talk about and when we look into the infrastructure development, planning has to be done in the infrastructure sector, like strengthening of the like transportation and connectivity, expanding roads, railways, airports, connecting the rural and bridging the urban and rural divide, connecting the rural and urban areas, making connectivity more possible in the rural areas, in the remote areas, to various schools, institutions, healthcare system, other public utility services which should be made available by strengthening and bringing about an enhanced and bringing about a more strengthening the connectivity through transportation, through road facilities, proper construction of roads, proper construction of schools, and other public utility services. Then enhancing power generation capacity with a focus on renewable energy. Then there is building infrastructure, that is talking about the digital infrastructure. Then there is environmental sustainability. When we talk about environmental sustainability, that is the natural resource management. One should, through planning should also focus on the natural resource management, like focuses on water conservation and afforestation, dealing with the challenges of climate change, mitigating the issues of climate change and global warming, implementing policies and programs which would reduce carbon emissions, promoting renewable energy, looking into aligning the policies and programs with the larger goals of sustainable development goals, and to achieve those goals with the target by 2030, with the target with the concerned target population. Then the planning also talks about the regional development, reducing regional disparities, like special focuses on the underprivileged or underdeveloped regions such as the northeast and tribal areas. So this regional disparities had to be curbed, and the feeling of this regional disparities need to be tackled effectively and efficiently. So the underdeveloped regions, particularly in the northeastern belt and the tribal areas, should be included in the mainstream, and bringing in them by strengthening their facilities, infrastructure, talking about the infrastructure development. Then development of backward states is equally provided important, providing additional financial and policy support to states like Bihar, Orissa, and Jharkhand. It also helps in understanding the what can be done, and how these states which are backward in terms of the development sector would be provided some kind of financial resources and policies and programs which would strengthen their state. Then we talk also, the planning is also done in the area of human resource development, like skill development and employment programs, training the workforce through Skill India, and various other initiatives in youth empowerment, focusing on youth-centric programs for leadership and innovation. Talking about women empowerment, there are certain schemes and programs of the government like Beti Bachao, self-groups for empowerment of women, strengthening women's capacity, the decision-making process, making them self-reliant and economically more independent and viable. Then we talk about the global integration. Planning is also done in the area of global integration, whereby trade investment policies are being created, are being made, attracting forest investments through liberalized trade policies. And then there are certain geopolitical strategies uh, strengthening India's global positions in international organizations. Then we talk about the administrative reforms and governance, e-governance, improving the efficiency and transparency in the government services, talking about decentralized planning, that is strengthening the local governments through panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies. And then lastly, upon policy monitoring and evaluation, which is an effective way of ensuring the effectiveness, the efficiencies of policies through Niti Aayog's real-time data analysis. So this is all, this is all related to the part or to the scope of social planning. Now I will stop here and I will continue my next lecture, like planning as an important instrument, as well as what are the sources and principles of social planning. Thank you, everyone.